Hello and welcome. This is Bombkey, and today we'll be talking about inks and planners. If you do not know me, I am a full-time artist working with both traditional and digital mediums. As of 2 years ago, I was introduced to the world of planners, which meant even more art supplies for me to explore and enjoy. 2025 is right around the corner, so that means it will be soon time to move into a new planner. In this video, I will be swatching on my ink collection and we will chat about my thoughts on each of them. When it comes to the planner, I decided to stick with Hobonichi for another year, though I was a bit anxious about the quality of the paper. While waiting for my order to arrive, I kept seeing reviews about the paper not being up to some people's expectations, having issues with feathering or even bleed through. Since I started using a Hobonichi in 2023, I've experienced the original Tomoe River paper, which is both a blessing and a curse. That is why I found it necessary to swatch out my ink collection just to make sure I wouldn't come across any surprises while filling out entries in the new year. For the swatching itself, I'm using a Sailor Hocoro dip pen with a Fude nib, which I am quite in love with. I decided to start with a simple black ink, Perle Noire by J. Herbin. After swatching it in the 2025 planner, I thought it would be a good idea to try it out in the other two as well, just to take note of the differences if there were any. I did notice that the ink appeared more flat and matte in the new planner as opposed to the 2023 one. Most inks do look better on the old Tomoe River paper, and this one was no exception. On the new paper, it dried almost immediately, which I liked. It is a rather straightforward ink, and I enjoy using it for sketches and writing. Here's a side-by-side comparison for all three swatches. I do feel like it looks quite one-dimensional in the new planner, but I experienced no bleed-through, so that's good, at least. Now let's move on to the rest of the ink collection. It made sense to continue with J. Herbin inks, so here they are lined up. I have 7 in total, 3 neutrals, 2 blues, and 2 purples. My favorite of the bunch is Violette Pensee. I use it for literally all my journal entries in 2024 because I just cannot get enough of it. I thought it would be a good idea to do the swatches in kind of a chromatic order, if you will. So I continue with Café des Iles, which is a beautiful warm brown. However, I did find it to be a little dry when using it in a fountain pen. Even in the dip pen it felt that way, but I do like the look of it. It is the only brown ink that I have, but I do want to branch out in the future because I feel like brown is a very beautiful color to have in your collection, and this one just doesn't quite do it for me. I thought it would be a good alternative to Lie de Thé, which is one of the most popular J. Herbin inks. However, I did not purchase it because I read about it being very dry. I cannot say that Café des Iles is much better on that front. Then we moved on with Rouille d'Encre. I'm not entirely sure if I say that correctly. I did study French for many years, but I am terrible at it. I think it is a really pretty ink. I really like the look of it, the idea of it rather, but I find it a bit too light for daily use. I cannot write with it. I mean, I can write with it, but I feel like it doesn't quite give what I wish it were giving, if that makes sense. It is very light, very peachy in normal writing with a fountain pen. It is somewhere in the same ballpark as Sailor Shikiori Yozakura, which I will be swatching later. It's kind of like a blush pink, a natural blush, and I enjoy using it for sketches and for drawing rather than for writing. Next up, we have an ink from the Perfume collection. I cannot really justify this purchase. I thought it would be cool to try a perfumed ink, but it's not. I would not recommend it. First of all, the color changes once it settles. It also bleeds through, I noticed. And yeah, from the blue that you see in the first initial swatch, it will become kind of like a pale, almost unreadable lavender color. It does smell pretty nice and pretty strongly, but that smell also fades away after writing with it. I currently have the planner right here with me and the smell is completely gone. So it is a nifty little ink, but do not expect it to smell like anything after a while. It is a cool concept, but no thank you. And now it's time for my favorite ink, Violette Pensee, which I mentioned at the start. I'm just in love with this ink. If you fall in love with it immediately, that is the correct course of action. It's a beautiful, cool-toned purple, almost neon violet if you look at it. It stands out among all of the other inks that I have. When you write with it, it goes down into the paper with a bit of a warm undertone, but as it dries down, that goes away, and what is left behind is just this wonderful violet. I have not seen anything quite like it. I'm sure it is not unique, but to me, I'm not an expert in inks, So I was quite impressed by it when I first tried it. So yeah, I suppose I have nothing but words of praise for this one. It's definitely in the top 3 for me, and I suggest you have a look at it while we're finishing up the J. Herbin swatches, just so you can see the way it settles into the paper and how it changes colors a little bit. Next up we have Poussiere de Lune, which means moon dust. It is of course another one of my favorite inks because it is in the same family as purples, and lately I have been quite obsessed with the color purple. Also, if you are interested, I found a pencil that is basically the exact same shade as this ink dried down, and that pencil is Blackberry by Derwent from their Colorsoft line. When you combine these two in a drawing, oh my god, it is amazing. I was very lucky to make this connection, and yeah, you're welcome. This ink goes down once again looking a bit more warm than it actually is dried down, which is not a problem. I like the end product honestly quite a lot. It reminds me of the stain that red wine leaves on your lips, and I find that quite poetic, which is maybe why it has been inked in my Twisby for the past year at this point. Now we move on to Bleu Calanque. It is a lovely teal-ish blue-green. It reminds me of the sea during summer, like just a gorgeous view from an island. It feels very tropical. I did not get the chance to use it a lot in my writing, but hopefully soon I will find some room for it. So here's the J. Herbin collection altogether. I am quite happy with what I have, although again, maybe my one regret is the perfumed ink. Otherwise, I find them quite lovely. Let's move on to Diamine, another very well-known ink brand which I adore, honestly. I would like to think that my Diamine collection is a bit more colorful than my J. Herbin one. However, I do notice now a lack of green, which is something that I will have to fix in the future. In any case, I will be starting off the swatching session for Diamine with Hope Pink. This one is a very, very gorgeous ink. I love how pink it is. It is very bright, very unapologetic, a true Barbie pink in my honest opinion. I've used it for drawings before, and I love the way it performs. On the old Noire river paper, you can see even a slight sheen, like kind of a gold sheen in certain swatches. It's a very well-behaving ink, and I think that everyone deserves to have some Hope Pink in their lives. It is one of those colors that I recommend to anyone. Even if you're not a fan of pink, this one might change your mind. Next up we have Hocoro, and I have a bit of a strange relationship with this ink because when I was filming the unboxing for these inks, it was like, I think my first order from Stilo Estile when I first bought my Hobonichi, I ended up spilling this one. Not all of it, but I just knocked it over and enough when flying onto the table, which wasn't fun. But, you know, every time I look at it, I remember that moment and I get a bit embarrassed and I feel bad for it. Anyway, Hocoro is a nice ink. I wouldn't say it's my favorite necessarily. I feel like I don't really vibe with orange and yellow in my art or in ink preference. It's very summery. I guess I just haven't found the right context for it yet. Oxblood is a deep maroon, which I really enjoy. I primarily use it in art up until this point. I have not used it in writing as much, but I really enjoy looking at it. However, one time I did have an issue with it forming crumbs in a pen. It scared me a little bit. I thought that the pen was ruined, but no, everything was fine. This is a tendency of red inks from what I've read online. I think it is quite gorgeous and comparable to Writer's Blood, also from Diamine. I just like this one better from the pictures, and I'm pretty happy with my decision. These next two inks are something else. Monboddo's hat is a deep purple with a bit of a red undertone, and I'm just fascinated by it. I notice in the larger swatches that it has a bit of a sheen, kind of like a golden sheen. I don't know why I'm just so fascinated by it. I think that it writes beautifully, it looks beautiful in drawings as well. I'm just in love with it. And honestly, if you are a purple fan like me, I think you need to try this one. If you haven't already, just so cool. Majestic Blue really lives up to its name. It is indeed majestic. It's a very wonderful blue with a strong pinkish red sheen, which is very obvious even on the new Sanzen paper. I'm really happy about that. I was afraid it wouldn't show up as well as it does on the original Tomoe River paper. It is stunning. You can see the sheen very clearly in writing as well, so not just in small or like saturated swatches, and I love it. And I just cleaned out one of my Kaweco Sports, so I think I might fill it with this specific ink. No words. Misty Blue is a nice, unassuming blue ink. It's a bit more on the muted, toned down side. I found it a bit too simple / basic for my tastes, and it kind of reminded me of inks that I would use in primary school. I need to try using it a bit more because it didn't really impress me much. It is fine, just fine. I'm sure I'll find a use for it. So here are all the Diamine inks together, of course excluding the shimmery ones that I have, but you will see those later. I think they're quite gorgeous. Which one is your favorite? I still think it's Hope Pink for me. So Sailor inks were my actual introduction into the world of fountain pens, and they've been my favorites ever since. Or at least a staple in my collection. We'll be starting off the swatching with Yuki-akari, which is a light pale blue. I find that it writes a little bit dry, which is a common issue that I've had with Sailor inks. It's not an issue as much as it is a trait of some of these inks. Some people may like it. I personally prefer wetter inks, but then again, it's not that big of a deal. What first drew me to Sailor inks was the fact that so many of them had really interesting and unique properties. Besides sheening, which is the case for many in the Shikiori collection, there are very interesting ones in the Studio collection, which I have none of yet. But I feel like my collection is far from finished anyway, so, you know, time will tell. Yamadori is to this day one of my favorite inks, and actually the first ink that I ever purchased. Just like Yuki-akari, it does run a little bit dry in certain nib sizes. For example, I had it in a Kaweco Sport with an M with a medium nib, and you know, sometimes it can be a little scratchy, but it's so beautiful that I just don't care. I've also used it in drawings because it is just, oh, it's wonderful. So yeah, Yamadori is definitely up there in the top 5. I especially love the fact that it has a really, really beautiful red sheen, which I think is perfect in combination with this specific shade of teal. I feel like at this point I might just be repeating myself because there are so many inks in this collection that I adore, but Shigure is so fascinating to me. It is a dark violet, almost black, with a stunning gold sheen. I don't know about you, but I am obsessed with this combination. It's rather common if you think about it, because of course violet and yellow, they do go together quite well. But Shigure is just, I remember using it in the 2023 Hobonichi for like a full month with a Kaweco, also medium, and it is definitely wet. It flows beautifully, it's just stunning. Yosakura was definitely a choice for me. I thought it was really pretty in other people's swatches, but when I started using it, well, it is pretty much unreadable in my personal script, but I do like using it for sketching or as some sort of watercolor. It's a pretty shade of cherry blossom pink, cool toned. It also has some interesting shading, almost grayish, but yeah, I cannot use it in writing. It's way too pale for my day-to-day journaling. I just keep it for sketches. I know I said earlier that I'm not a fan of yellow and orange, but this ink is the exception. Yamabuki is part of the Sailor Manio collection, and it is amazing. I love the hue variation, the way it has people wondering if it's supposed to be yellow or orange, and I love writing with it. I've had no problems with the flow. It looks amazing, both on Altomoy River paper and on the Sanvin paper. It's just a great ink all around. And I really want to try more inks from the Manio collection because this one, oh, just great. Finally, we're moving on to a green ink. Incredible. We're like 13 minutes into the video and this is the first time we see a green ink. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is who I am. So this one is Waka-uguisu, a very nice spring green. In writing, it has some very nice darker shading. I think it is a very pretty standard kind of shade of green. So if you're interested in getting a green ink, this one's a good option. I feel like I said the word green way too many times in the past few seconds, but you know, we're making up for lost time. Closing off this page of swatching, we have Miruai, which is another green ink. Yes, can you believe it? I cannot. This one was part of the first 3 inks that I purchased, together with Yamadori and Shigure. I would describe it as a dark forest green, and one thing that drew me to it specifically was the fact that it has a dark brown coppery sheen, and it is very visible in writing. From afar, it may seem almost black, but when you look up close and you see that is, oh my god, it is a dark green with a bronze sheen. It also rhymes. Isn't that amazing? I like it quite a lot. Here's a closer look at the swatches so that you can actually see the shading and sheening I keep telling you about. I have to say, the 2023 planner was doing a much better job at highlighting these properties, but at least we've got no bleed through or feathering. From these swatches, I would say that Yamadori takes the crown. In this final, shorter section of the video, I will be showcasing my special inks, aka inks that have a lot of shimmering or glitter. I'll be starting off with the Sailor Dip Tin Mellow Forest. I got this one together with the Hocoro dip pen, the one that I use for swatching, and the ink is recommended to be used only with dip pens because of the shimmer. If you didn't know, shimmer can really clog up fountain pens, so be careful using them. The ink itself is a dark minty green with a lot of pink and white shimmer. Serendipity by Diamine is a very fun name to say, first of all. Second of all, I got it when I was visiting Rome last year and I dropped by the Stilo e Stile physical store. This ink was first part of the Diamine ink event calendar back in 2022, and then it became part of the main collection, which I am very, very happy about. It is sheening, it is shimmering, it is amazing. The base color is teal with strong red sheening and bronze shimmer. It's very beautiful. I've used it in a pen for quite a long time and it was difficult to wash out, but I managed. Don't do what I did though, unless you want to deal with a bit of a headache. Diamine Happy Holidays is another ink that I found on my travels. This one came home with me from Vienna. It is a beautiful midnight blue ink with a lot of sheening and of course shimmer. For the sheening, we're once again talking about a lot of red, and the shimmer looks silvery blue to me. Another ink that I had loaded in one of my pens, which again I do not recommend, but I just couldn't resist it. And it is perfect for the holidays. So that's the end of my rather short list of shimmering inks. I honestly thought that I had a few more, but well, this is fine too. And you can see through this closer look that they are absolutely gorgeous, each and every one of them. Though I am looking to expand my collection, so if you have any favorites, make sure to let me know, especially if they're purple. That will be the end of this video. Thank you for being here, and I hope this is useful for your own ink journey. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below and I will do my best to respond. And if you enjoyed this video, a like and perhaps even a subscribe helps a ton. A big, huge thank you to my patrons for their kind support. Alright, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!